This video is powered by wootware's Wootbook Y14, a lightweight and sleek notebook based on AMD's Ryzen 7 CPU with Radeon graphics. Perfect for productivity and lightweight gaming. For more info, click the link in the description below. Hey everyone, Neo once again from the Overclocker, and today I have the ROG Strix B850-F gaming Wi-Fi motherboard. Another Strix F board that has managed to impress not only by its looks and features, but more importantly, its local pricing. So on Amazon, this motherboard is $300 US, which is a lot for a Strix F board, but at $6,799 for us here from wootware, it's a great price for what you get and rather hard to beat. In fact, I don't think ROG's own B850E model can offer a better value than this one. Looks-wise, it's similar to other ROG Strix boards of this generation, sporting an all-black design with grey and silver accents and a touch of color in a few places. The days of ROG boards being represented by black and red are truly behind us. Close to the rear I/O is where you'll see the ROG Eye, which is just about the only place that lights up during operation. I remain skeptical about the pixel art graphic design, but I know others who find it appealing. For an entry-level board, it has all that you need, including a 16+2+2 VRM design with 80 amp power stages, more than enough for any CPU that would be on the platform. Not only that, but the B850F Strix has an 8-layer PCB, while competing boards only offer 6-layer PCBs. The B850 chipset, unlike the X870, doesn't necessitate the presence of Gen 5 PCIe slots or M.2 sockets, but the B850F Gaming features both of these. Talking about PCIe, we've seen many GPU removal solutions in the past, including pulleys and buttons. However, the latest slot Q release is by far the most elegant. Simply push the PCIe slot latch down, then pull the GPU from the back. Literally, that's it. No need for anything fancy, cheaper for Asus to implement and easier for us to use. The primary PCIe slot is paired with the secondary full-length X4 PCIe 4 slot from the chipset. As for the M.2 sockets, you have 4 of them, 2 of which are Gen 5 compliant, while the other 2 are Gen 4. As usual, the PCIe 4 slot is made inactive if you populate one of the Gen 4 M.2 sockets, as they do happen to share bandwidth. The primary M.2 socket has a beefy heatsink with a moderate amount of surface area, no doubt for Gen 5 drives. As usual, it's easy to install and remove via a latch mechanism. You have 8 4-pin PWM fan headers, 3 argb headers, a Thunderbolt header, 2 USB 2 headers, a single USB 3 header, and of course the Type-C 20 gigabits per second header as well. The board has no postcode display, but does feature indicator lights for CPU, DRAM, VGA, and the boot process. Turning to the rear I/O, we find the display port and HDMI outputs, 4 USB 5 gigabits per second ports, 4 USB ports, 1 10 gigabits per second Type-C port, the clear CMOS and BIOS flashback buttons, a 2.5G LAN port, 2 10 gigabits per second Type-A ports, and a single 20 gigabits per second Type-C ports. We then have Q antenna ports, and finally 2 audio mini jacks and a digital out for audio. Everything you'd need barring USB 4, which is what you get on the Strix E board. Audio is again under the Supreme FX umbrella, featuring the usual ALC 4080 codec, paired with the Savitech op-amp, audio capacitors, shielding, and a Dolby Atmos license. More than good enough for most of us and superior to the usual ALC 1220 driven solutions on competing products. There isn't much more to the board physically, outside of some ROG graphics on the underside. You'll not see them after installation, but I guess it's a cool thing to have some sort of artwork there. Getting to the UEFI or BIOS, we see that the typical red and black interface, a throwback to the actual boards when they were black and red, is in full effect. It's in full HD with the option to go back to the legacy mode. You'll find all the typical features here, apart from a few optional extras such as the Asus Performance Enhancement and Core Performance Boost, along with the Medium Boosted in the PBO submenu. Other than that is what we saw on the Hero and Strix F X870 series boards. Memory profiles are present here as well, all the way up to DDR5 7600 for Hynix IC-based 24 gigabit DIMMs. Interestingly, the board claims DDR5 8000 support for the QVL, right? But I couldn't get this to work at all. Granted, I was using Corsair's Vengeance CU-DIMMs in bypass mode for this review, which are not in the QVL, but it's still curious that even with another set of DDR5 8000 memories, I couldn't get the speed to be stabilized. And seeing profiles only up to 7600 makes it even more curious. That being said, it's time for the performance numbers. Testing was done on the AMD Ryzen III 9950X, Corsair's Vengeance DDR5 memory, the ROG Strix GeForce RTX 4080, and it's all powered by the XPG Fusion 1600W ATX 3.0 PSU. First up, we have either 64 memory bandwidth. As you'd expect, going from the standard DDR5 5600 to DDR5 6400 boosts memory bandwidth anywhere between 11 and 15 gigabytes per second, while reducing latency by around 4 nanoseconds. Next up is V-Ray and Cinebench R23. Here we can see the combination of PBO and the DRAM OC takes the already mighty Ryzen 9 9950X to new heights, offering a 9% improvement in performance. Cinebench 2024's multi-core test via PBO and DRAM tuning allows the system to gain an additional 9% in performance as well, allowing it to eclipse the Intel Core Ultra 9 285K, which is particularly strong in this test. Geekbench 6, on the other hand, shows an impressive 11% gain from the PBO and DRAM optimizations, at least in the multi-core tests. And then we have Benchmate's 7-zip benchmark on the other hand, which shows a modest 5% increase in performance from the same tuning. Then we have SuperPi 32M, which has not been a strong point for AMD Ryzen CPUs in eons, and it's no different now with this motherboard or CPU. There's hardly any difference between the default and PBO enhanced settings. In 3D Mark CPU profile test and the PT11 CPU mark, the gains from the overclocking are modest, but once again allows the 9950X to eclipse the Core Ultra 9 285K in CPU mark. In the 3D Mark CPU profile test, the 285K is simply just too powerful and the overclocking doesn't change that situation at all. Finally, we get to the gaming test, where we can see that in Hitman 3, the PBO and DRAM overclocking adds between 7 and 8% in performance, so even as a gaming CPU, the 9950X is quite capable. In Forza Horizon 5, where I'm definitely GPU bound, the overclocking via PBO and DRAM yields an increase of about 5% in the 1% lows. Last but certainly not least, we have Cyberpunk 2077, where we get a 7% increase in performance when looking at the average frame rates. This is another one that's GPU bound at these settings, but nonetheless does show scaling from tuning. Well, that's that for the Asus ROG Strix B850-F gaming Wi-Fi motherboard. It doesn't do anything to stand out, but that's precisely what allows it to be such a strong contender, not just among B850 boards, but all AM5 boards available locally. Sure enough, it doesn't have Thunderbolt or USB 4, but in all honesty, how many of us have such devices? Even high-performance external drives such as the ADATA SD810 I use daily have more than enough bandwidth via the 20 gigabits per second USB Type-C port on the rear I/O and the front panel of the board as well. While there are cheaper options on the market, at about 1,000 Rand cheaper, they'd sacrifice a whole lot to get to that price point. Overall, this is probably the best bang for buck B850 or AM5 motherboard period, at least locally. Either way, let me know what you guys think in the comments below, but until the next time, take care of yourselves and peace!